there.
I like that music.
Maxi. Thank
You guys
you.
have you guys have turned super pro now. Waiting room, music, countdowns. Nice.
Exactly. StreamYard, if you want to sponsor us, that would be amazing. Hey there, Marina. Hey,
How
Max.
are you?
Hey guys.
I'm tired. It's quite late here. It's 9 o'clock, but I'm like, I gotta jump on here because Mr. Webster is here, and I haven't seen or spoken to him for quite a while, and this is the opportunity to catch up
And we got to
because
know
he's
where the
always
money is.
we gotta know where the money is.
Tell me
Right?
about it.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. Well, Max has been showing money to quite a number of people, actually. Max, how many companies have you invested in so far?
Well,
At least
so
with Hivemind.
yeah, I mean, so I started Hivemind Ventures in September 2021. So it's been a couple of years now, which is crazy. And I've been pretty active. I've been not as good with like marketing, although my hope is eventually we'll get a new website up. Hopefully from Australia, we'll see.
We all have that feeling, yeah.
Totally. But I believe it's like 37 companies. I've been pretty active.
37 companies. Wow. And well, you say you're not good at marketing, but 37 is quite a number.
That's a lot. I've been
And
busy.
yeah, it is a lot. And from what I understand, like people just love having you on their cap tables because you're such a energetic, enthusiastic person in the space, and you add so much value to these companies. And that bit of motivation and belief that you like, it's not just like distributing money to them. You do a lot more than that. Maybe you could talk about why are you so excited about
Well, I mean,
about these companies?
yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I certainly don't want to oversell what I can do with my bandwidth and everything. I wish I could do a lot more because there's so much to be done, and I wish I could support the companies 100x more than I do now. But I think one thing that I have done and that I am proud of is I'm willing to be, or I have tried to be, that first yes. And I think honestly, as a venture investor, the biggest value add you can actually make. And this is actually the founder of the fund where I used to work before version 1. I think he said this once, and it really stuck with me, is like, it can be really tough to get that first yes. And I'm super comfortable going solo without other people. I mean, I certainly love investing with other people, but if I believe in someone, I have no problem, taking that first shot there. So that's something I've definitely tried to do. And I think, like you guys, and look, I'm a huge fan of the two of you. I mean, the work y'all do with Bolt Fund, seriously, like it's both like the best thing in the space and still underappreciated. Like, you guys are doing just incredible work organizing these hackathons, galvanizing the community. And I know it's a labor of love, and you're on here late, Johns, I hear from you and be freaking 2 a.m. in the morning, your time or whatever, and you're still cranking away. Like, so I think like you guys and like the founders, and I think this is one difference between me and a lot of other, quote unquote VCs or investors. I am a VC. I do want to make great returns for my LPs, and I'm, quite confident we will. But to be clear, I mean, I really do view myself as one of the gang. I mean, I'm part of the Nostr community. Like, I really believe in this stuff. I think that, I want to see, there's a reason my fund is called Hivemind. And I've been inspired by people like Buckminster Fuller, Tesla, Edison, Ford. This morning I was talking with my girlfriend about, what's his name, Bohm, the quantum physicist. And I think a lot of great minds in human history have asked this question. Kevin Kelly, what would it look like if every, kind of neuron in a global hive mind was able to work cooperatively with everyone else, but not in a coercive way? And they still had their own kind of individual autonomy. And I see right now, in the 21st century, technology is accelerating, which is cool. I mean, I love technology. I think it's badass. But I think we kind of have this like fundamental question we have to answer as humanity. We're going to form a hive mind. There's no question about that. It's done. The question in my mind is, what kind of hive mind? Is it going to be kind of like the Chinese top-down approach where the neurons do work together, but in a coercive way? Or is it going to be a bottom-up emergent form of intelligence? And I'm making the bet on, and also trying to put my own time and energy and whatever I can do to help push the needle a little bit on the latter vision. And so, like all of you, I mean, I do see myself somewhat as a missionary, and I think all of us do. And I think that, yes, we can make a lot of money here, and I certainly hope we do. But at the same time, I think this is probably the most important mission for the world. Like, is this Hivemind going to be, top down or bottom up? And I really hope bottom up. And I think all of us are doing everything we can to make that reality.
So how does Nostr specifically play a role in that Hivemind then? Like, how would you say?
Well, I think that the way that I've kind of refined my investing over the years, when I started Hivemind, it was very much focused on the Lightning Network. There were a lot of crypto funds, a few Bitcoin funds, but at the time, I didn't really kind of position myself as a Bitcoin fund, but more of a Lightning fund, because I was very interested in like, how does this actually bring utility? Like, I get all the Bitcoin stuff. I love it. Amazing. But to me, what I'm interested in is how does this become useful for 8 billion humans? And then who knows, trillions, how many kind of new forms of intelligence, which we're building right now. And I wanted a system that was open and decentralized for open commerce. And also shout out to Oleg and Hivemind Ventures at the time. They were also very much positioned as a Lightning fund as well, which I thought was really cool. And he was definitely an inspiration to me. And so yeah, for the first 2 years of investing, I kind of looked at my investing as investing in the Lightning Network infrastructure stage. And so I did some applications, but the majority of my investments were really focused on infrastructure, stuff like Lightning Labs and River. And that's awesome. But then, I kind of view now, a couple of years later, the Lightning Network is pretty robust. Obviously, there's still some issues as we see on the mailing list, but in general, I think that it's by far our best chance to scale Bitcoin and make it useful to humans and to future machine intelligences. But it's not by itself enough. Like Bitcoin and Lightning, Bitcoin is the decentralized network for value, the way I see it. Lightning is the decentralized network for payments. But we were still missing, and I've been kind of looking for many years now, what's going to be that network for data and for communications. And, I was very inspired early on by thinkers like Drew Bansal at Unchained and Ryan Gentry at Lightning Labs. And they kind of had this vision for Lightning scaling the layers. By the way, Drew called, and Ryan as well, but a lot of everything that's happening right now in a talk from 2018, he was just like correct on basically, everything. And that talk still only has like 1,100 views on like 100 of them. So it's crazy to me. Like, you can still find such crazy alpha out there. But one thing that they were both kind of really harping on for years is that, Bitcoin's going to scale like TCP, IP, HTTP. It's going to scale in layers, just like the OSI model for the internet. And I think that's right. And, in the long run, they kind of had this vision for a data network on top of Lightning, and that might still come. And in that case, it would be something like incentivized Tor, where you're literally paying to transfer packets of information that can allow actually to rebuild a decentralized physical infrastructure as well. The actual like telecom type networks. And I think we'll get there. I do, on a long enough time horizon. I think we're heading there. And they may be right that in the long run, that third layer is directly on top of Lightning, i.e. every packet of information includes a payment with it. However, I think that's probably a ways off. And for now, I think Nostr is sort of like, some people call it a layer 3, and I think that's convenient. It's really more of a kind of adjacent data layer, but it's being anchored into the Lightning Network, which I think is really important. And so when I started grokking Nostr, I've been following it for a while, not as long as you guys. You guys are the real OGs. But I remember, it must have been like early 2022 or something, or maybe even late 2021. I don't remember. But, I was talking with Super Testnet, shout out to Super, who basically just explained to me how big this was going to be. Then I started following, and working with, I invested in Ellen Bits very early on. So BinArc, and through that, I followed along with Fiat Job. And I was like, yeah, this thing seems like it has a lot of potential. But I kind of kept in the back of my head. I was very focused on, Lightning infrastructure. And then last year, around October, I started taking a lot more interest because I saw Alby with their big integration. You guys integrated early on as well, which was dope. And then I was like, all right, obviously I respect the Bolt Fund guys a lot. I respect the Alby guys a lot. If they're both betting big on this, probably something there. And then December happens, Jack Dorsey gets on, shit goes crazy. The rest is history. And so since then, when I saw that like early takeoff, I had the same conviction I had when I got Bitcoin, when I got Lightning, and I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm ready to go all in. I can be somewhat impulsive in that way, but I like to trust my gut on this. And I think the data is also proving it out. What I will say is kind of come back to your original question. So we have Bitcoin for value, we have Lightning for payments, and now we have Nostr for data. And when you think about that, you can basically start to understand you can rebuild or build new types of applications, any type of application. all the stuff in quote unquote crypto land, I think that's anything that's interesting is just going to get reabsorbed by Bitcoin, Lightning, and Nostr. You can build, for example, a DEX. Nostr, one thing that I think a lot of people miss still is the social media thing is cool. And don't get me wrong, like I like it. The fact that we can do zapping on there is amazing. By the way, shout out, I just saw Will, I guess, shipped the new Damus version where zapping is really easy and intuitive again. That's awesome. Shout out to the Albi guys who made that super easy, and Primal super easy. Like that's awesome. And like zapping and uncensored social media is a great use case. It got us our first several 100,000 users. I love it. But the reality is I'm not even much of a social media guy. I probably never will be. It's just not my thing. And that's not what Nostr is, right? Like this is kind of like the baby step. What I see in Nostr is it's the web. At first I thought I was like SMTP. Now I'm like, no, it's HTTP. We're going to just rebuild the web. Any application is strictly better with identity that's portable and persistent, and with the ability to mash up data between applications. I always tell people, imagine, a dating app or a recruiting app where you can, let's say, like, we'll recommend the right person for me based on, who follows them on Twitter, who they follow, what they listen to on Spotify, what they're recommending on Goodreads. Like you can just build better experiences straight up. And one of those is marketplaces. And, all this crypto nonsense or whatever, they all want DEXs. Well, cool. You don't need a token. It doesn't need to be on the blockchain. We can build you a DEX right now. And this is one of the areas I'm really excited to invest in. Shout out to the Ellen Bits guys. Diagon Alley, which Ben came up with, and I guess worked with Fiat Java on, that, to my understanding, kind of was the precursor to Nostr. And the stuff that they've been shipping lately with Nostr Market and like having a really nice indexer for what they're building is just mind blowing. And very few people have seen the potential for that. So anyways, all this to say, I think we're rebuilding as big of a deal as Bitcoin and Lightning are, which is going to allow us to rebuild the economy. I think we're also going to rebuild the internet. And together, I mean, what else would you rather be doing? This is wild.
Rebuilding the internet. That's a very bold statement, Max, I have to ask this question, right?
Sure.
There was this TV show, very brilliant TV show. It was called Silicon Valley. Do you recall this one?
It's too real. I can't watch it because it's too crazy.
Right?
It's too real.
So, like, these are some big missions, big problems to kind of go towards. You were saying that there's a difference or there's certain things that VCs are looking for in particular, right? And I'm assuming it's these big, ambitious ideas. Like this is, but I guess the question I'm trying to come up with here is, not all makers kind of like are in that kind of mindset yet. They're coming on and they're thinking like, well, I'm just building this little thing. Like, what would you say, like, when you see such kind of makers that want to kind of like get their project going, they want a bit of funding, like, is that a fit for you? Like, what are you looking for in the makers specifically, and in the problems that they're trying to tackle, I guess?
Well, I guess first of all, I would say, and I think we talked about this a little bit. I think we did a jam on this last year. And the first thing I would say is, look, there's no one right way to do things. There's a lot of ways to build a project, business. First of all, if you're an open source dev, the fact that OpenSats with those guys and what Jack are doing, just funding devs, like, man, that's like God's work right there. That's amazing. And so, if you just want to be able to work on your project and not think about monetization or any of that stuff at all, like, man, like, how cool is that someone is just offering funding? That's incredible. So that's a great route. I think a lot of businesses, and I think kind of part of the beauty of Nostr, by the way, is that it facilitates the long tail of everything, right? Like you can have more weird experiences around everything, any kind of application. Like I remember one example when Damus shipped early on, like the left-handed feature, like Twitter would never do that because there's not enough of an audience to care. But imagine you have some tiny app that's like, this is.
I'm left-handed.
Huh?
I'm left-handed, so I get that.
Oh, okay. So you get it, right? So,
me too.
Yeah,
Oh,
here
sure.
we have
All right,
two
well,
lefties, man.
Uh-oh, shit. Now I'm in the minority, but
yeah.
but anyways, but
I want
my
a
point is-
national public speaking championship on that topic, by the way.
Oh, you'll have to share that too.
do you talk?
It was a while
What do you
ago.
talk about this left-handedness?
Well, he did. Max did. But I love it. No, we need more left-handed stuff. But go on, Max, please.
My broader point is just that,
Yeah.
and this is something else that I see a lot with, Pablo, I think I saw in the chat, who, if there is an
Yeah.
MVP of Nostr, damn, it's got to be this guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many things has he shipped? But on
can't
the,
keep track.
I can't keep track. Literally, I can't keep track. Like I was looking today before I talked, like, well, what's Pablo been doing? It's like, fuck, like 10 new projects last I checked. Like, is this guy asleep? But on the DVM stuff, I know we'll talk data vending machine, a lot of the AI stuff I'm very excited about. But one thing that he said that really resonated with me as well is like, imagine, you're running your data vending machine, maybe you've got your own relay or whatever as well. And all you do is just transcribe Bitcoin podcasts. And you're just like, that's all you do. You're the best in the world. Or maybe you even get more specific and you're like, we're going to fine tune our model, our Whisper like transcription model to be the best in the world at transcribing the Kevin Rook podcast. And that's it. Now, is that going to be a venture scale business? Of course not. Could that be something where you make some decent money? And like, maybe if you're living in a place that's low cost of living, could you maybe fund yourself that way? Maybe, probably. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of these kind of more quote unquote bootstrap businesses, which are great. The other thing that I would say though, now from the venture perspective, if you do want to raise venture funding, one thing I would say as a VC, the first question we all look at is, could this get big? So for me, the way that I'm playing in this game, and the majority of my investments are very early, first money in, and I'm typically doing them at very low valuation caps. And the reason I'm able to do this is because I have enough conviction that if I get in early enough and I get in at a good enough valuation, like if some of these projects just absolutely explode to the full potential, then I can return the fund many times over. This is like what YC has done. And YC has arguably been, I don't think it's arguable, it's been the best venture fund of the last decade, the best returns wise. And so I'm super comfortable playing that game. I know we're going to get strikeouts, but the thing I think a lot of founders don't understand, if they're pitching VC, which again is not for everyone, but if you're pitching VC, the only question that I care about first, and then we get into team and stuff, I'll talk about that, but it's literally one question. If this goes right, and by the way, sometimes it might go more right than the entrepreneur thinks. Like sometimes I see, like, I've obviously spent a lot of time with Ben and at Ellen Bits, and he sees a big vision. But the more we talk, I'm like, nah, dude, this is bigger than you realize. And sometimes the project takes a life of its own, But the first question I want to ask myself always is just, if this goes right, how big could it be? And if the answer is, it could be whatever, a $10 million a year business, I'm not interested. If it's $100 million a year business, okay, I'm interested. If it's a multi-billion-dollar a year business, and again, there's very few of those every decade, but now I'm really interested because I can strike out many times, but as long as I'm in that one or two that becomes the next, really big company, then I'm game with that. Now, to be clear, I do think Nostr is going to disintermediate a lot of the current way the web works. And so maybe we actually won't see a company as big as a Facebook or Google again, and that's probably good for humanity. But it doesn't mean we won't see really big companies. And I'm in the business of finding those really big companies.
That's very
So I'm
interesting.
going to
Go on.
I just wanted to bring the comment that Pablo made. He was with us recently, and he actually said that monetization is not possible at this time, that he really is here to build and to shape and to change what we're seeing in the world first. And then when monetization is possible, he wants to be there, right? So that is a question that he brought up, and I wanted to see what you think about that as well. Like maybe now isn't the time.
Yeah. And again, so when I'm making bets as early as I typically do, right? I don't expect founders to have everything figured out at all. Like how could they? I mean, like we're so early, things are going to change so much. What I'm interested in is a couple of things. Number one, are they asking questions that could get big? Yeah. So you don't even have to have the plan and tell me, it's going to be doing this and all this. Again, when I look at Ellen Bits and Ben, like I think it's way bigger than even he realizes. But I need to know that you're exploring and asking questions in a space that could absolutely pop, right? So if you say, as an example, what if we launch, a dominant open source marketplace software and we run one of the major indexers and search and discovery platforms for that? Okay, cool. That could be an Amazon. I see it. If it's something super niche and like, you're like, but we can get to like, whatever, $1 million ARR, it just doesn't interest me. That's just my particular kind of take on this. So I would say if you're asking questions of like, hey, I'm interested in exploring, for me, the areas I'm most, interested in search and discovery. I know that can be big. I'm really interested in discovering, marketplaces. I know that can be big. I'm interested in asking questions around, decentralized or edge AI. There's a lot of things around that. I know that's going to be big. And so that's the first thing I care about is just like straight up, are you asking interesting questions? If you're not asking questions that could get big, that's a stop. The next thing I ask is, okay, does this entrepreneur, and I think I've said this before, but like my kind of rubric is, does this entrepreneur, one, are they super smart and have unique insights? Number two, do they have good taste? I think taste is the most important thing out there by far. And number three, can they ship fast? Those are the three things I'm looking for. If they're smart and have unique insights, like the best thing for me with a founder is when they tell me something, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't think, oh, you're right. I had no idea. Or like, did you realize that because, users are using this site, maybe that means there's an opportunity to build this app? It's like, I hadn't even thought of that. So unique insight, that will get me all the time. Taste. If you ship something, is your heart and soul, is it beautiful, right? Is it just beautiful? I'll give you the best example there. Kian, Stacker News. That dude is G. And everything he ships is beautiful. There's heart and soul in every product or every feature he pushes out. It's never just, oh, let's just see if this works. No, it's like, it's meant to be beautiful. That's a big thing I look for. And obviously I've invested in him twice. I'm a huge fan there. I think the Albie guy's a great taste. I know you've worked on some of that design stuff as well. Beautiful. For an open source project, everything they ship is just like, oh God, this is gorgeous. So that's something. Umbral, same thing, taste. And then can you ship fast? A lot of, and I haven't announced all my Nostr investments, so I'll let the entrepreneurs invest when they're ready. But a lot of the people I'm investing in are people that ship super fast because we don't know. We just don't know. And like, if you're asking questions in the right space, you release nice, tasteful things. But you need to, at this stage, in the stage I'm betting on, you need to be able to release fast because you're going to learn from the market quickly. And I'll give you the best example there. I think this is an announcement, whatever. I've invested now in GPUtopia, and I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. Absolutely huge fan. I mean, that could be one of the biggest companies of the decade if we do this right. And
for people who don't know what is GPUtopia, can you tell them what it is?
So GPUtopia is, well, stage one is a marketplace for compute paid out in sats. And so something I've been calling for many years, and I joke about this. I posted this tongue in cheek on Twitter, but I actually mean it. There's going to be like a lot of quote unquote alpha or good ideas and just going to all the crypto ecosystems saying, hey, what was a good idea here? And again, my sort of view on all of this is Bitcoin and Lightning are the internet of money. All the other crypto ecosystems are intranets. We saw this already play out in the 90s. It's not a new story. Bill Gates, smart guy, obviously, bet on the wrong thing at the information superhighway. Everything came back to the open web, full stop. Same thing's happening here, same thing. And so going to all these kind of like intranets and saying, oh, that's a good idea. What if we rebuild it on the internet? And so one example, for years that I've been looking for, and Ryan at Lightning Labs really, as an early thought partner in this many years ago, helped me see this, is marketplaces for, resources, compute, bandwidth, storage. And so I look at that and I'm like, okay, all these kind of like shitcoin networks or whatever, like obviously they don't have liquidity, they're intranets, they're not interoperable, blah, blah, blah. But they showed there is demand for those things, right? And so the first one I think is going to be compute. Right now, you look at the AI wave. And so this is something else, I'm based in San Francisco, so I have a slightly, maybe different view. I know a lot of the Bitcoin community is outside of here or whatever now, but the AI thing is real. It's exploding. Like I've never seen anything like this. Like in SF, like it's wild. It's wild how much money is being poured into AI, how many people are hacking on this. And so as a result of that, the demand for GPUs is just, you can't get them, right? And so a lot of what these companies are raising these huge rounds for is just to pay NVIDIA to buy their GPUs. And oh, by the way, that's not even a market because no matter how much money you have, Jensen's sitting there kind of allocating, he's the market. And so you just can't get GPUs, right? So Christopher David, the founder of GPUtopia, had an excellent insight. We talked about this. I wrote about it in my decentralized AI essay. I've saw some other people playing this idea. It's like, well, we know there's crazy demand for this. What if there was a marketplace where you could just like anyone can use their own creativity and their own resources, i.e. a market, and go out there and find GPUs. I wonder if people can find them. And oh, by the way, if we want them to find them, how are we going to pay them? And oh wait, we have this open monetary network with, you know, instant final settlement, potentially peer-to-peer. That's huge. And so anyway, so, you know, he ran this experiment. They were giving out sats, anyone that could plug in GPUs. And I think within a week or 2 weeks, they broke like 3 times maybe. And I think it was the fastest growing Lightning app ever.
Wow.
I think they got to like 500 or 600 users in like a week, 150,000 payments. It was breaking. Now they're building the demand side, like cloning OpenAI, which is funny because we call it actually or truly OpenAI, you know? Yeah. And we still have to prove out the demand side, but we've already proven, you know, if you can just plug in GPUs, people like for sats, people will do that. That market is there. And a lot of it's early crypto miners or who knows where people are getting this from, but it's going to follow the dynamics of early mining again. And then on top of that, if you go, and I highly suggest checking out Christopher's talks on Twitter and whatnot, you know, then what if you rebuild everything in AI as a marketplace, like fine tuning, reinforcement learning? Oh, I don't know, maybe it's Hugging Face. You contribute a model and you get paid. The big thesis here, to go full circle, is something that both Drew and Ryan said in that talk, or one of those talks, is forget Bitcoin, forget crypto. Like what we're surfacing here really is the power of free markets. And we already have free markets for value and payments now. And now we're getting for information. When you combine all of those things, what happens when you apply market forces to like whatever? And that's what I'm excited about.
For you, is the big idea there the marketplace for GPUs, or is it the marketplaces for all the AI things? Like, because like both of them are quite huge. Obviously, one is like a scale even bigger, but like, let's say like maybe I'm not that target, you know, VC fundable person or whatever, but GPU marketplace is like huge already, right? Multi-billion-dollar industry potentially. Marketplaces for all the other things might come naturally, you know, after you serve the GPUs. But do you look at it as like a package, or like could those things be kind of like standing on their own?
Well, I think the beauty of building all this stuff, and they haven't integrated Nostr yet, but there's already an open bounty. So if anyone listening to this call, they already announced 2 BTCs worth of just bounties.
Whoa. So
one of them is to integrate Nostr. I think another one's L402. So it's coming, and maybe someone on this call will do it and get paid. We've already had bounties thrown out. By the way, I think that's something that's completely underestimated. What happens when, like, you know, instead of having to deal with tons of compliance and HR and all this, you just say, hey, here's what I want done. I'll pay you. And if you do it, you get paid. That's going to be wild when you open up the internet to be able to work together. It's going to be wild. And, you know, GP Utopia, as far as I've seen, I mean, other people have done this pretty well. I know Breeze has done some cool stuff with bounties. But GP Utopia, I think, is like probably the most interesting bounty site right now. So if you want to integrate GP Utopia with Nostr or do whatever, Christopher's got a whole bunch of different bounties you can go check out right now. I think Albie's done some good stuff with bounties as well. Anyways, but the beauty of building this on open protocols is I don't think there should be capture where one company becomes too big. I don't think that's good for society. So again, the joke here is like, I mean, if we build, so what's the big opportunity? Yes, the marketplace for GPU compute is big. The big opportunity is just rebuilding OpenAI, but doing it in an open way. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing. And, but my hope is that you're not going to have one company that just like, you know, OpenAI or Google that rules them all. That's not good. You know, you should have an open marketplace for all of these different things, right? Marketplace for models, marketplace for fine tuning, marketplace for RLHF, marketplace for compute, marketplace eventually for all the other resources, bandwidth, storage, blah, blah, blah. And anyone should be able to compete in those. And so to be clear, because this is all open in the background, it's not like GPTopia is going to have a monopoly. If someone else comes along and the code's all open, anyone can clone it right now. But what they're betting on is that they're going to be able to have one of the best interfaces for it and some of the best services around it. And that's because they have great talent. They're like publishing the standards, they're building ahead. But again, and this is something that, you know, I've listened, you know, like Jack at Block has talked a lot about. It's like, because he's building, and other people too, right, on open networks like Lightning Network, their Square or Block's not going to have a monopoly, but they're just going to do it the best, or at least that's his plan. And so that's what I'm betting on. But if someone else can come along and they can carve out some niche of that market, great, go for it. I mean, like, again, it's market forces, not regulatory capture, not, you know, some other kind of capture.
We just did
what
a
also,
hackathon. Sorry, we just did a hackathon for AI. And out of, let's say, 25, 30 projects that presented, 8 of them integrated Nostr, for example, which was super exciting to see. And I think
Yep.
it kind of shows what you're saying about where things are going and how things are shaping up, too.
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
I was part of that. I was super stoked to see it all happen,
Yeah.
and I was proud to sponsor that one. Hopefully, we'll do some more in the future. But I think we're only scratching the surface of the Nostr Lightning Bitcoin plus AI stack, and that's probably the number one thing I'm focused on right now.
this does make competition quite interesting, and like product development in general quite interesting. What you said there about being the best user interface, being the best tooling, etc., etc., so that you can attract that market. And you are, you're competing with everyone else, but there is a collaboration aspect, a collaborative aspect in it, that I do agree with you. That's just going to benefit everyone else and the entire ecosystem and humanity, as you say there. We see this with like, all these different clients, right? They're kind of at this point competing for user experience, right? Yes, the winner was a DVM for the AI for All hackathon sponsored by, yes, Hivemind, Stackwork,
Yes.
and organized by Fedi and us. Um, yeah, yeah. So, that does bring a very interesting dynamic. I think a lot of people still have a mentality, especially if they haven't been involved in open sources yet, open source development. They have the mentality of like, let me keep things close to my chest. Let me not reveal it very much as well. Because then that's taking away my competitive advantage. But as you say, the competitive advantage is like, can you ship? Can you execute? Can you make it the best? And yeah, that's super interesting.
Well,
And
you
one,
actually said it, Max. So you said it in the beginning. You said someone with an idea. So you are looking at the people with the ideas that are shipping fast. And it's a really
totally.
interesting, like, because I was going to ask you, do you focus on the idea? Do you focus on the leaders of the project? Like when you're looking at the investment, is it a people first approach or an idea second, or how does that go?
I well, so let me answer that, and then I want to make one other comment on what you're saying too, Johns. But I would say it's market then people. And when I say market, it doesn't mean you have to have the idea completely ironed out, but are you asking questions that could get really big? Then it's, does this person ship fast, have unique insights, and have good taste? And if so, I'm super comfortable making a bet just on a solo person or a small team. No problem with that. In fact, I prefer it. Because the more you get a big team and a plan, it's like you just get bogged down. And then bogged down means you're not creative. As an example, when I funded GPtopia and Chris, he was working on actually an Nostr chat app. So sorry we put that on pause. But I liked him and I thought he was asking interesting questions. And like I knew he was also exploring AI stuff. And I was like, cool. I remember we chatted. He was just like, I think this thing could be bigger. I was like, great, drop everything, do that. Like and that's one thing I would like to communicate to founders is like, I think this is true in life in general, like not to get trapped by past baggage. If you see the wave, so much of being an entrepreneur is like surfing. It's like, if you see the wave, like paddle. And then Johns, you were saying something that I wanted to comment on as well. Oh, the open source thing, right? I mean, I think open source is also just getting started. I think open source will eventually eat all closed source software. It just kind of has to. And I think that, a lot of people, it just requires like a radical thinking of like what value is, how it accrues. But even in just the simplest terms, one of the reasons to open source is distribution, right? I think one thing a lot of people were shocked about, I remember there's an article maybe from Elad Gil or somewhere, he was like, oh my God, this was in 2019 maybe, software markets were 10x bigger than anyone thought. And the reason for that is because when you open things up to the whole world, there's just a lot more customers than you possibly could realize or even service. And then I think to myself, well, he's right, but he's only partially right because that wasn't for the whole world, right? What about the 2 billion people that have access to exactly no banking services and all the others that have access to very limited banking services? Like markets are so much bigger than people realize. And so the way I think about it is the most important thing is distribution. If you get free distribution and you ship open source software, in my mind, the reality is everyone has to pay for it in some way. One way to pay for it is with time. And if you're a hacker and you have the skills and the free time to be able to mess with something set up, amazing, go for it. You're going to improve the project. You're probably going to contribute, bug fixes or new ideas back to the project. Amazing. Everyone wins there. If you're a big company, and by the way, companies are the ones with most of the money, time and like security is what matters so much more. So like, yeah, you could hack on it and deploy it, but you're not, because you're making money somewhere else. So if you can just like pay someone to host it, give you an SLA to take care of it, man, you're going to take that trade all day, every day. And so I just think, yeah, in general, people, and also I think it comes down to just like a fundamental, just kind of like trusting of the universe. Like if you put good things out, it does come back, but you have to like experience that firsthand.
Pablo says, Nostr gives you brutal free distribution, an entrepreneur's paradise.
I agree.
And that's also quite an interesting concept here. You can spin up your new client or community, and immediately it's going to be able to access all this open information. I think, okay, so how then do you determine, because this could get a little tricky, I guess, how then do you determine traction? How do you determine traction then, right? Which, for some investors, this is kind of important. I guess for you, not as much. But yeah, do you have any comment on that phenomenon that we have now with Nostr? Because I do think it shakes up things a bit in the VC game.
Well, yeah, I mean, so for sure it shakes things up. Also, I think there's open questions about monetization, right? And like, I think even I have to play a little bit of the trust game of like, if you get enough distribution and usage, we'll find ways to monetize. And I don't think that's that big of a leap, but like, to be clear, I mean, no one's done it yet, right? So we still haven't proven it. Your question on traction, like, do you mean like at the stage I'm investing on, does it matter how many users they have, or what exactly?
Well, how do you count your users, right? That's the thing, right? How do you count your users? Especially because T generation is free. I mean, it's very cheap.
Well, I mean, there are ways of tracking users. And I think, I mean, obviously everyone's going to do this differently, but like, for example, if you can know how many people potentially create a key with your site, but at the end of you might have some other metrics. For example, if you're like, I think in the future, maybe some Nostr clients will, end up routing payments for some of their users, and maybe that's the scarce resource. And so you might have some insights there. But I think in general, you kind of know. You also, for example, if you're publishing an app, you can still, for now, but although I'm very much in the PWA camp, you can know downloads. So like there are ways to get like pretty decent heuristics, maybe not perfect. But I don't know, like if you've achieved product market fit and like it's working, you don't have to ask that question. Like, for example, Damas didn't really have to ask that question. They just popped off.
That's very true. I think Damas is kind of synonymous now, though, with iOS clients, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You mentioned earlier that you typically look for founders that could like teach you something. You learn and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that before. Well, I wanted to ask you if you knew that left-handed people sight gets adjusted faster underwater. So you guess I don't know.
They do what? They do
it gets
what
adjusted faster underwater when you go underwater. You know how it gets like blurry and thing. Left-handed people apparently. I don't know.
Damn, I had no idea.
So what does that mean now? I mean, kind of awkward now. I told you something you didn't know.
I feel like I'm on the Stacker News Friday random.
Stacker News is also something.
Stacker News, you talk about trust rank when you talk about them. Tell me what you mean by trust rank, and also tell us about paperclip optimization. I read that in one of your AI pieces, and so I just want you to explain that to our listeners.
Okay, so we'll start with the trust rank, and this is something that a lot of people are playing with various ideas of. Kian at Stacker News, Artur at Nostr.band, Milian at Primal, and I think anyone that's working on a Nostr client is probably playing with this. So the core insight. So I put out an essay maybe a little over a year ago called "How to Disrupt Google," and this was before I was very deep in Nostr. I was aware of it, but I wasn't like a regular user. The Nostr, yeah. I saw that in the chat. And the idea is that, you know, there's a couple like mega trends in the world right now. One is the amount of information is going parabolic, right? With generative AI, the amount of text and images is just like, we're already drowning in information as humans. Like, we were not meant to process more. Processing Twitter alone is like both like the greatest good and greatest evil of all time. And it's about to get a lot worse. And so in that world where things are about to get a lot more information, way harder to find signal, way harder to know what to trust. Like, you see things coming out in the news, like, how do I know if this is real? I have literally no way of knowing. And if you don't necessarily trust the the big powers that be, which anyone on this call probably does not, you're already going in skeptical. So how the hell are you supposed to operate in the 21st century if you're flooded with information and no way of like figuring out what's real and what's not? So if you look at the early days of Google, the way that they, tried to solve this problem when the internet was first launching, that was the first time we saw a big kind of uptick in information, was they had this thing called PageRank. And the idea behind PageRank was an algorithm, and there's probably a lot more to it that's been evolved since then. But the core fundamental breakthrough is like, hey, we build trust by establishing some network that we think is trusted and then building out from there. And so as I understand it, my buddy DK, who was there in the early days, the way he explained it to me was basically they started by anything that linked back to stanford.edu, whatever, had some trusted weight, and then you build out from there. And so obviously PageRank ended up just like dominating, and they had their sort of thesis around that, and that was the core of the company, and it just like destroyed Dogpile and Ask Jeeves and Yahoo and all these other systems. And I think there's an opportunity to do something like that again with what I'm calling value rank or market rank. One of the core insights before I even got to Nostr was Google is just turning to shit. Like, I think ask anyone on this call, like I'm guessing everyone on this call is at least somewhat of a nerd. The nerds don't use Google. And if they are using Google, they're doing their search plus Reddit or plus Stack Overflow or plus Hacker News, right? Because those community forums are where the actual signal lives. And so that to me was kind of a fundamental breakthrough. And then I saw, there was an article in Hacker News. This guy, I think DKB or something, was talking about this. And I think it was like one of the top most upvoted articles of all time, like number 11, where basically it was just like, Google is unusable. And I started thinking, okay, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. And by the way, Reddit is the real Google. But they, I don't think are confident enough to understand what they've got on their hands. So then I started thinking, well, what if you could build a new algorithm that uses many things, but one of the core ideas was associating with value with information. So in this world, as information is already infinite and it's about to go way more infinite, the only things that are scarce in my mind, Bitcoin or Satoshis and human attention. And so then I started thinking, well, what if you could associate, information with value? I think this is a brand new human primitive. And I think it could be the core of a new ranking algorithm, not the whole thing. But then anyways, that's when I wrote this article. And originally I had the idea that it could be like a forum like Stacker News that becomes the new search engine. I still think that, or something like Albi, where you maybe like tip around the web and that creates a value signal. And I kind of call this a Satoshi depth layer. Like the internet is 2-dimensional. And then you have this depth layer of Satoshis, which is 3-dimensional. But then Nostr popped up and I was like, okay,
Pablo.
Pablo?
Pablo again, yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. I agree. It's not information overload. It is filter flow. That's a great cliche quote. But so then when I started realizing, oh wait, Nostr is kind of that open social graph. And so then you can start to do stuff like you can build persistent identity and see who's zapped to and create kind of a neural net where the weights, are the amount of zap between different nodes. And that started getting really interesting to me. And I think this is kind of a fundamental insight. It's one of the things I'm kind of spearfishing for right now is who's going to take this insight and build really, really good search and discovery on top of it. I think Stacker News is very well positioned. Maybe Albi is. I think what Nostr.band, what Artur are doing, he's got a new browser as well, Spring, which is really cool. Primal guys, I'm sure Will is working on this at Damus. There's a lot of people taking different approaches on this, but this is one of the ideas that I'm really excited about. And oh, by the way, even if LLM chat becomes more popular, same thing. You still have to train the model on various weights, and I think some model of in-pubs and zaps is going to be critical for training those models. So that was the first question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wait. Yeah, continue. Finish that thought.
No. I was going to answer your second question, but I forgot what it was. So
So didn't we just get a huge overload of Reddit users to Nostr, by the way, and follow up. I actually have pushback on the value for value. Like, I know that there's a point where we get really excited and we zap people, but the zaps go lower and lower in amounts, and also even just in the amount of likes or amount of zaps. So how do you make sure that people stay excited, stay giving enough money for the project to sustain in long run? Because there I sometimes wonder, can we really do it? Because we just get bored or tired or stop being as active.
Well, to be clear, I don't know exactly what the final form of all this is going to take. If it's going to be like commerce transactions or value style tipping. The key insight for me, at least, is that you want to see the weights of these neurons based on who is sending what. And the absolute value doesn't even matter that much to me, as much as the kind of like the difference, right? So as an example, if I see that, say Jack Dorsey's InPub becomes one of the like Stanford.edus, and he's zapping 100 sats to one thing, that's very little, but he zaps 10 million sats to something else. Okay, even though both of those amounts are small in absolute terms, one is order of magnitudes bigger than the other, right? So that there's signal in the difference. Like if you can,
so like quality versus quantity as well.
Yeah, and if you can kind of compute like an average zap size for an InPub, and then you say, well, this one's 2 standard deviations above that. Okay, that's interesting. Now, to be clear, I mean, I love value for value. I'm also, big supporter investor in companies like Fountain. They were one of the first to really push on this. But to be clear, I don't know if that's going to be the final model. I like it. I think Gigi has a lot of good arguments for it as well. I want that world to exist. Will it? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Humans, probably still like ads and blah, blah, blah. So we'll probably see new AdWorks. I think you're just going to see a lot of different ecosystems, some value for value, some direct pay subscriptions for your service, some new ad networks emerge. Probably, I don't know which of those are going to be the biggest. And I think there's going to be some combo of all three, and maybe other models none of us have dreamed up yet. But the point is, in any of those, you can still get signal, even if it's someone paying to unlock content or paying for a subscription, or even from the ad network, whatever, you can still get signal like how is money flowing, how is value flowing. And that's a strong signal, whether it's tipping or purchases.
Max, you mentioned earlier that you had a surprise and you didn't want to let me in on it. Is it time?
It's time. And I was going to say this. So this is a sneak preview for anyone coming to Nostr Asia. I'm super stoked for that. Any of you guys are entrepreneurs working on any of these ideas, definitely hit me up. Let's talk there. But I want to show you this little
guy. Is this the Nostr Asia t-shirt?
Crazy, awesome design.
I remember last year you were rocking the Nostr Rica. Oh, earlier this year you were rocking the Nostr Rica one.
Nice.
That is killer.
So gotta give a shout out to my dad. Who goes by Queb, who made this, and I'm steadily pushing him. My dad's an incredible artist. I'm pushing him to get set up so we can sell t-shirts for sats someday. But for now, this is an N01. Maybe it'll be more in the future.
Damn, I thought I was gonna get one now.
Maybe you will. Are you gonna be in Tokyo?
No.
Well, next time we see each other, maybe.
Marina's good.
I am gonna be there.
Oh, all right. I see a couple.
Pablo also wants one too.
I can see that.
You're gonna have to carry a full suitcase with them.
Exactly.
Yo.
Well, it's funny because well, some people may know this. I'm like addicted to green tea. I'm a huge green tea addict. And I'm very into specifically Japanese green teas. And I've only been to Japan once in my whole life. It was like the craziest, fucking like coolest trip. Like Japan is just like the coolest country on earth. Like no one can convince me otherwise. It's so like it's the only time I've ever been somewhere I'm like, man, this is just a different like alien world. Like it was so cool. And anyway, so I'm really into tea. So the last time I went, this was in my pre-VC days. I was just vagabonding around the world for several months. It was really fun. And I got to Japan and I was like, oh my God, the tea is so good. And, I had a tiny ass little backpack. I just threw away most of my clothes and packed it full of the tea. It's so much better than clothes. Hey. I can be stinky. I don't care. And so this time, maybe if I bring some extra shirts or something, I can get rid of them and have more room for tea. So.
Yes.
Or
You
you could
see?
just get like upgrade the luggage, Max. Come on, get luggage upgrade.
Yeah, we have a bunch of people already offering sats for your t-shirts. So you
Oh
go.
man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
DM me on
So
Nostr or shoot me a message. I'll see what I can do. I actually don't know. We probably won't have time to get new ones made up, and, but I'll see what I can do. And if not this time, maybe we can figure out some way to hook it up.
like Max is just running around with like limited edition t-shirts. So did he design the last one that you were wearing for the Nostration one? Because I remember you had like a really funky t-shirt for Nostration, Nostarica.
For Costa Rica.
Well, so I mean, I have a couple of Nostr shirts. So Sam at Lightning Store does really cool stuff.
Yeah, he
And I
does.
love his No Effects Nostr shirt. And I also had his Nostarica one, which is like of a Nostrage in Costa Rica with like cool colors. So those are both his. They're also dope. I will definitely I rock those all the time as well. The one of Nostradamus, my dad made. And I don't have that one with me right now. But that's like you can tell my
post
dad
it later and show it to us.
Exactly.
The style.
I will definitely bring it. It's very kind of like psychedelic and it's cool.
You got to
So
get him
Max, we
pumped
have a
on
debate
Nostr.
here with Johns.
Okay.
You say you noosed, you post, you note. Like, what do you say?
Honestly, like, here's the irony of all of this. Like, I'm so not a social media guy. I do use Nostr, but honestly, I don't even use it that much for this. Like, I truly am much more excited about the marketplace wave.
Yes, of course.
And the new apps that, Wave Lake and Fountain and Stacker News and all these guys are integrating and plugging into Nostr, the marketplaces. What Pablo is doing with Highlighter, I'm super excited about the DVMs.
Yeah.
So the social media thing, like, I mean, I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't know.
Well, what all I'm hearing here is that you're saying that noost is what you do, and you boost your noost. That's it. You boost
Gotta
your
give some
with
love
that
to my
one.
dude John. Sure.
Well, Max, I'm looking
Pablo.
forward to seeing you in Tokyo because I'm going to be there for the judging. We're going to be announcing winners November 3rd.
Sick.
And I hope you can take a look at the projects that are on Nostr Asia and check out what's going on. And I know we are very excited to have you here. And I've been reading all of your writings. You're amazing writer. And I think John's already mentioned that. So we already linked to your articles on Hivemind. And we look forward to you doing more with money on Nostr.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I mean, last thoughts I'll say there. Number one, seriously, the stuff you guys do with Bulldog Fund is incredible. Y'all's hackathons have already produced incredible projects. And so very thankful for what y'all are doing. Number two, anyone listening to this, again, if you are doing something that looks at Nostr marketplaces, the mashup of Nostr with Edge open source AI, and or the best way to do search and discovery on Nostr, those are the three things I'm really interested in and would love to hear more from you.
And where should they find you?
Well, obviously on Nostr. I'm
What's
sure you guys
your
will probably have my NPub or something in here.
Can you call it out?
Hmm?
Can you call it your info?
Yeah, let me see. I actually, okay.
No, I'm joking. We'll put it in the show notes.
He's Max.
Okay. So you can shoot me a note there. And or if you're still on the old Bird app, which I'm sure is sacrilege here, Max A. Webster, but I'm there too.
Yeah. Max, there might be something that you're interested in. I haven't quite gotten into it as yet. It's called Nostr Assets. So these guys are doing some Taproot. You familiar with it?
I mean, I'm not an expert. I've heard some about it. Seems cool.
Yeah. It's you mentioned about Texas stuff earlier, so that's something that I'm gonna have to look into. Because some people are looking to issue some kinds of assets and stuff there. So we'll see what kind of like interfaces come out of it. I see there's an NPub on the screen. I don't know if this is your NPub. Someone posted the NPub, so there we go. I'll go with it. If not, free plug for someone.
Not that you can copy paste,
but also just how crazy is it right now, right? Like,
yes,
I just feel like we're in for such a perfect storm. Like Nostr is just getting heated up. The Lightning Network, obviously, like we're pretty mature there. We're about to get Taproot assets natively on top of Lightning. Oh, by the way, there's this happening thing about to happen. Like, holy fucking hell! Like, what a time to be doing what we're doing.
So wait, that was the last question that somebody asked me. Are you going to wait until the halving to invest more, or do you not care at all?
Well, I to be very frank, I will say in my, like, look, any entrepreneur that's out there right now, you probably understand it's a very weird time in the market. And it's weird because on the one hand, liquidity is tight. That's reality. And I have to raise from my outside LPs. And like I will say, liquidity is tighter and it's more challenging this time than it was in 2021. Having said that, the time to invest has never been better. You know what I'm saying? Like the amount of builders in the space, the amount of connectivity, the amount of mainstream press we're getting from our tiny little beginning of a bull run. And so I'm very bullish. And so what I'll say there is I definitely am open for business. Frankly, I am being a little bit more methodical and slower than before, just because I have to acknowledge the reality of my own, market with liquidity. But I do think that's going to change pretty fast. And so, if I find a project I love, I will do it right now. Probably on the smaller side, probably, earlier side as well. Like I like to go very early. But my also hope is that, once the rest of the market realizes what's about to happen, like right now we have a secret and it's awesome. And as an investor, it's cool because like I love secrets. The flip side is when everyone understands, it'll be less of a secret and there'll be way more noise and annoying, people that are Johnny come latelys, blah, blah, blah. But on the other side, liquidity should get a lot easier for everybody. So short answer, yes, I'm investing. I'm being more slow than I was before, but I think liquidity is about to change rapidly in the next couple of months.
Max, thank you so much. As Marina said, gradually then suddenly. We're going to end the stream off here. Thank you so much for all your excitement, all your support over the years as well. You've been a big supporter of Gold Fund. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming here and sharing your perspective with all of us. And we're signing off now, everybody. Have a great evening or
Thanks,
morning
guys.
or whatever it is everyone's saying. Ciao, ciao.